In the early stages of evolution, the surrounding environment was far from pleasant. The raw and harsh climate of the primitive era posed an immense challenge to living creatures. The blazing sun scorched an endless desert, where the heat made the sand's surface burn like fire, a habitat full of hardship. Creatures capable of walking on two legs faced these extreme temperatures, yet their bodies were still not fully evolved to handle such conditions. Walking across burning sand brought unavoidable pain and exhaustion. At this point, evolution was not only about biological adaptation, it was about tool innovation. Small but revolutionary creative act was the invention of the very first primitive sandals. Using animal hides and sharp stones, they developed the ability to create tools that protected their bodies from the environment. The first step on a long path of inventing tools for survival. As they transitioned into open grasslands with fewer trees, their food sources changed. Fruits and leaves once common in dense forests became rare. In contrast, the savanna offered new sources of energy, underground roots, and, more importantly, meat and bone marrow. Gradually, they shifted from foraging to opportunistic hunting. A wild camel, large and dangerous, might not have been an ideal target, but in the face of hunger, every opportunity mattered. Their hunts relied not on bursts of speed, but on endurance, a uniquely human. Their ability to sweat efficiently through hairless skin allowed them to sustain prolonged exertion under the sun. Outlasting animals that depended on panting to cool off. Through persistence, they could drive prey to exhaustion. Yet danger was everywhere. The grassland teemed with thorny bushes that tore their skin. Such wounds, though small, could be fatal in a world without medical knowledge. This pressure nurtured acts of mutual care. A female using leaves to bandage a male's wounds was not just an act of compassion, it was a survival strategy, marking the beginning of caregiving behavior within the group. Once again, adversity triggered creativity. The camel hide, initially valued only as food, became something more. Observing that the material had protected the camel from thorns, the female made a cognitive leap. It could protect them too. The rudimentary process of treating hides, scraping off fat, cleaning, and perhaps using ochre soil to soften and deodorize, marked an important technological step. Wearing animal skin was not just clothing. It was the creation of a second skin, a natural armor against minor but persistent threats, scratches, impacts, and thorns. Each such invention reinforced their dominance in the food chain, gradually turning them from prey into predators. In the endless struggle for survival, honey was an energy treasure, dense, fast-releasing, and vital fuel for a growing brain. It was one of nature's richest and purest sources of sugar. Discovering a beehive was like finding an energy vault. However, ancient bees had evolved powerful defense mechanisms. Their venom caused intense pain, swelling, allergic shock, and sometimes death, even for much larger creatures. The first attempt was a painful failure. But instead of abandoning the prize, their brains began to work. They were no longer passive reactors to nature. They started planning to overcome it. Crafting a protective suit made from multiple hide pieces marked a technological peak of the era. No longer just a single covering, it became a full-body tool system. It required deliberate measurement, cutting, and assembly, a sign of planning and cooperation. Two individuals worked together toward a shared goal, combining skills and knowledge to create a solution. They used intellect to compensate for biological weakness. In the ancient savannah, no meal came free. Every valuable food source was contested. The sweet scent of honey or meat traveled far, drawing competitors. Humans were not the only clever or strong species. They shared their territory with powerful omnivores and predators, giants of the early Ice Age. A massive bear, with superior strength and an acute sense of smell, was an impossible opponent in direct combat. Every encounter with a large predator was a life or death calculation. Wisdom, in this case, meant retreat. Though evolved as expert walkers, they still retained climbing ability. Flexible shoulders and grasping hands offered refuge above ground. Trees became vertical. This encounter revealed their precarious position in the food chain, both hunter and hunted. Creators, yet fragile beings. Their survival depended on a delicate balance of courage, skill, and self-awareness in a perilous world. The desert night brought cool relief, but awakened persistent threats. Blood-sucking insects filled the prehistoric ecosystem in vast numbers. They were more than nuisances. They spread disease. Every bite risked infection. For bare-skinned beings without fur or feathers, they were perfect targets. Young individuals, with weaker immune systems and thinner skin, were most vulnerable. Chronic blood loss night after night weakened their health severely. Parental protection became a driving force of evolution. Their care extended beyond feeding. It included proactive defense against dangers, large and small. Creating Nature's fury came not only from heat or insects, but from storms. Fierce winds, rain, and lightning destroyed shelters, extinguished fires, and caused hypothermia, especially for wet bodies. Childbirth was the most vulnerable moment for any mammal. The mother, exhausted and defenseless. The newborn, fragile and sensitive to temperature. For humans, the danger multiplied. Evolution had created a biological paradox. Walking upright narrowed and stiffened the pelvis, while the expanding brain demanded a larger skull. These opposing forces made human birth a painful, perilous process. This is where social structure became vital. Unlike many species, the female could not give birth safely alone. The presence of her partner, or others in the group, became essential for survival. The male not only guarded against predators, but shielded her from the storm, providing physical and emotional support. The newborn, entering a chaotic world, depended entirely. The storm had disrupted everything. Predators too were hungry. Among them, saber-toothed cats were specialized killing machines. Their long, flat canines were not for strangling prey, but for slicing deep into throats or bellies, rupturing arteries and causing rapid blood loss. Their sharp sense of smell drew them to the scent of a newborn, the blood and amniotic fluid left from the previous night's birth. A newborn, helpless and silent, was the easiest prey imaginable. Facing such a predator, they fought back to protect their child at any cost. It was an uneven battle, biologically weaker and slower, with no claws or fangs. They possessed two advantages: intelligence and courage. The spear, a tool of distance and leverage, turned the tide. It allowed them to strike from afar, using the full power of arms, shoulders, and torso. This fight was the clash between raw muscle and armed intellect, between predatory instinct and parental devotion. Though wounded, their victory proved one thing: with tools and willpower, even fragile beings could defeat the fiercest of beasts. The slain predator became sustenance. Its death gave life. Butchering a large animal required skill and precise tools. Sharp stone flakes, older one tools, were used with surprising accuracy. They sliced through thick hide, tendons, and muscles, separating flesh from bone. This skill was not instinctive. It had to be learned and practiced. Roasting was an external form of digestion. Heat broke down tough proteins and melted fats, making food easier to chew and absorb. It killed bacteria and parasites, drastically reducing disease risk. Cooked food provided more usable energy, freeing time once spent chewing and fueling brain growth. A communal meal around the leopard's skin was more than material. It carried meaning. Now, the process of cleaning, scraping, and drying had become more refined. Each step served a purpose, transforming raw hide into durable, flexible, warm, and functional material. Early sewing tools, dried sinew as thread, bone or stone awls for piercing, enabled the creation of fitted garments. They no longer merely wrapped hides, they shaped them. When the bright patterned leopard skin was worn, it did more than keep them warm. It symbolized triumph. For the first time, clothing transcended function to carry meaning. It became a visible proof of victory, a mark of strength, courage, and skill. Wearing the trophy of a slain predator earned respect within the group and offered psychological protection, a reminder that they were no longer passive prey. Human evolution was not only genetic, it was cultural. Unlike other animals driven purely by instinct, these beings had long childhoods, an opportunity for learning. Butchering with stone tools was not innate. It had to be taught through observation and imitation. Sewing, processing sinew, identifying materials, all were accumulated knowledge. This was the birth of culture, non-genetic information passed down generations. Parents no longer passed just biological traits, but skills, tools, and wisdom. Children learning to handle stone blades and thread sinew inherited not only survival skills, but the collective intelligence of their ancestors. Knowledge outlived individuals, becoming the shared legacy of the group and accelerating adaptation beyond natural selection. The leopard's claw, inedible and non-functional, was kept. It was drilled, strung, and worn as ornamentation. This may have been one of the earliest expressions of artistic thought. Jewelry served no survival purpose. It reflected a mind beginning to contemplate meaning beyond survival itself.